Welcome, fellow drifters. To those joining before leaving for Slumberland, I hope you sleep well. And rest assured that old Neon has the guard shift tonight. I tend to be a night owl anyways. Let me know in the comments if anyone else is the same way. Now listen to the voice from the other side. And if you enjoy these stories, hit like and subscribe. I've been working as an overnight parking lot security guard for about 8 years now. Mostly for office buildings, private garages, or apartment complexes. The job's quiet and usually low stress, which I like. I'm a vet, Army 11 Bravo, that's infantry for the uninitiated, discharged in 2014. And the solitude helps keep my head straight. I've got some issues sleeping at normal hours anyways, so this fits. Anyways, last night, something happened in the lower lot of the building I watch. I still don't really have a good explanation for it. I've been over it in my head a dozen times, but something about it just doesn't add up. Let me lay it out the way it happened. The site I'm at now is a medical office building just outside of Phoenix. 6 stories, 2 outdoor lots, and an underground garage. I work solo, midnight to 8 a.m. I patrol every hour, check the stairwells, and make sure no one's sleeping in their car or messing with the staff vehicles. Most nights are dead quiet. Maybe the occasional late nurse grabbing something they forgot, or a cleaning crew around 3 a.m. But last night around 2:45, I was just finishing up a sweep of the ground level lot when I noticed a car in the lower garage that hadn't been there earlier. It was a silver Buick, older model, late 90s maybe. Parked crooked in stall number B12 with the engine off but headlights still on. Odd, but not unheard of. Sometimes folks come in late for early surgeries or night janitors start early, but the building was locked and empty. No scheduled staff and no cleaning crew last night. And this car definitely wasn't there on my last pass at 1 a.m. I walked over to check it out. My usual approach is polite but firm. "Excuse me, this is a private lot. Do you need assistance?" The driver's side window was down about 3 inches, enough to talk through. Inside, I could make out a figure sitting upright, hands on the steering wheel. They didn't respond. Now, I've had people sleep in their cars, sometimes hopped up, sometimes just homeless folks looking for shelter. You get used to it, but this didn't feel like that. I stepped closer and said again, "Sir, you all right?" Still nothing, not even movement. But the headlights cut off right as I reached the front bumper. Not faded out, just click and totally dark. I radioed in the incident to my supervisor just for the record. Got an unresponsive occupant in a silver Buick, lower garage, stall B12. Vehicle powered down after approach. Gonna do a closer check. Here's where it gets strange. As I stepped up to the driver's side window and shined my flashlight in, I saw nothing. No one in the seat. The car was empty. Front seat, back seat, floors, all clear. Keys were still in the ignition. Light on the dashboard blinking like the car was in accessory mode. But no driver. No sign anyone had even been there at all. Now I know what I saw before. I'm not some jumpy rookie. There was a figure in the seat, and it wasn't a trick of the light. It was shaped like a man, still and facing forward. But now the car was empty. I opened the driver's side door, it wasn't locked, and did a quick sweep. Glove box had a few fast food napkins and an expired registration from 2020. The name on it was not a tenant or staff member, according to the roster I carry. Nothing alarming, but the interior had this weird chemical smell. Not like gas or cleaner. More like scorched plastic or burned wiring, faint but present. I decided to call it in again, and as I turned to head back to the stairs, my radio buzzed loud with static. Now, these radios are basic. They've got 2 channels, and we rarely use them except to log incidents or check out for breaks. But this static was loud and sharp, like someone was pressing the mic button and dragging their thumb over it. Then I heard a voice, Not a full sentence, just one word. Wait. Low and raspy. Not a voice I recognized. I spun around thinking someone had come up behind me. Nothing. Just the dim ceiling lights humming and that Buick sitting there like it hadn't moved in years. That's when the overhead lights in that row flickered. 3 of them, in sequence. First the one above me, then the one 10 feet ahead, then the one above the car. Buzz, 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 then out. All 3. I didn't waste time after that. I backed toward the stairwell, eyes scanning in every direction. No footsteps and no movements. Just that empty car and the echo of my own boots. When I got to the main level and looked out the stairwell window, the lower lot was dark. All the overheads were off, like a whole circuit blew. 5 minutes later, when backup arrived, per protocol for unknown vehicles, the lights were back on. The car? It was gone. No tire marks, no engine sound, no security footage. Our camera in that corner had gone offline from 2:43 to 2:51. Exactly the window of time when I saw the figure, then didn't. I didn't put all of that in the report. Just noted an unidentified vehicle, possible trespass. Disappeared before patrol backup arrived. I'm not in the business of sounding like a lunatic, and honestly, I still don't know what I actually saw. Could have been a weird squatter trick. Maybe someone slipped out while I circled the vehicle. Maybe. But I've run through it over and over, and there's no way I missed someone crawling out or ducking away. The timing, the voice on the radio, and the lights. It all felt like it was timed to me. Like I was being tested. I'm not quitting. I've had weirder nights overseas, and I need the paycheck. But tonight, I brought my own flashlight, a backup radio, and I'm keeping my head on a swivel. And I'm not going back down to B12 alone again. If anyone else here works night security, have you seen something like this? A presence that seems there, then gone? A vehicle showing up without a trace? I don't believe in ghosts, but I believe in things you can't explain. I work night security at a small industrial park just outside of Bakersfield. It's mostly warehouses, auto parts, construction equipment, and one building that does weird biotech stuff but keeps everything hush-hush. I don't ask questions. I'm just here to log vehicles and make sure no one's hopping the fences. The park's layout is simple. A main loop road, half a dozen large buildings spaced out around it, and a gated entrance I operate from a booth. I do 2 perimeter checks during the night, one at midnight and one around 4 a.m. That's the routine. Nothing exciting until last night. It started like any other shift. I clocked in at 10 p.m., poured some terrible vending machine coffee, and started flipping through camera feeds. Everything was still, just rows of parked trucks, roll-up bay doors, shadows, nothing unusual. At 11:55, I grabbed my flashlight and keys and started the perimeter walk. The loop takes about 20 minutes if I took it slow. I check each warehouse's doors, peek behind the buildings, and make sure there's no weird activity. Bakersfield at night has a hum to it, but the park sits far enough from the freeway that it just feels dead out there. No cars and no wind. Just me and my boots on the pavement. When I got to Building 5, the biotech place, I noticed the side service door wasn't fully latched. It wasn't wide open, but it was about an inch off the frame. Now, sometimes staff does forget to lock up right. It happens. But they're usually good about it, especially this place. They're paranoid about security. So I approached slowly, listening. No movement inside. I called it into my report log, knocked twice and pulled the door open. It was dark inside, lights were off and there was no noise. Just rows of stainless steel equipment and what looked like refrigeration units. I called out, but there was no answer. Technically, I'm not supposed to go inside, unless I hear something. But I've been on this job over a year, and you get a feel for when something's off. I took a few cautious steps in, shined my flashlight down the corridor, and stopped cold. There was a backpack just inside the threshold. Black canvas, not labeled. Not something I'd expect in a locked lab. I called it in on the radio and got no response. Dispatch was probably half asleep or microwaving something. I decided to snap a photo of the bag and back out to wait for the morning crew to ID it. As I turned to leave, I heard something behind me. A subtle creak, soft and quick. I spun with the flashlight and caught a glimpse of someone slipping through a door at the far end of the lab. It was a silhouette, but it was tall and fast. Definitely not staff. "Hey!" I yelled, more out of reflex than strategy. I jogged down the corridor but stopped short. No way I was chasing someone deeper into a dark biotech building. Not without backup. I called on the radio again, and still there was nothing. I backed out of the building, pulled the door shut and latched it. Then I called my supervisor directly on my cell. He picked up after a few rings, groggy and not really happy. I gave him a rundown: unsecured door, possible intruder, no signs of forced entry. He told me to lock the front gate, get back to the booth and wait for police. Fine by me. I circled back around, locking the pedestrian entrances, and then the vehicle gate. When I got to the booth, I pulled up the exterior cams around Building 5. That's when I saw it. At 11:58, right before I reached the building, the camera had caught a man slipping through a gap in the fence behind the dumpsters. He was carrying the backpack. He looked straight up at the camera as he passed under it. No mask, no attempt to hide his face. He looked calm, like he belonged there. I made a copy of the footage on a thumb drive, just in case. Then I sat back in the booth, doors locked, hand on the baton clipped to my belt. It took the police 25 minutes to arrive. When they cleared the building, they found the side door still latched, but the inner office had been broken into. One of the server racks had a panel popped off, and a hard drive was missing. The backpack was gone too. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry on the fence. They think whoever it was had scoped the place out, maybe even had help from someone on the inside. But here's what's messed me up the most. The cops pulled footage from earlier in the night. Turns out the guy had been hiding behind the storage crates by Building 6 for almost an hour before he made his move. He was just sitting there, watching. I passed within 20 feet of him during my first loop. Never saw a thing. That's the kind of detail that sticks with you. Not ghosts, not monsters. Just a guy who knew exactly where to hide, exactly when to move, and didn't care that I might catch him. I finished the shift, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way he looked at the camera, the fact that he knew how to move around the place better than I did. I keep wondering if he's done this before, or worse, if he's still watching, waiting for the next quiet night when nobody's really paying attention. I've been doing night watch work for about 5 years now. It's not glamorous, but I prefer quiet over chaos. Mostly I monitor construction sites, make sure no one's stealing copper wiring, or tagging the walls. Pretty easy stuff. A lawn chair, a thermos, a few rounds with a flashlight. Boring, but reliable. This happened 2 years ago, and I still think about it sometimes when I'm parked alone in the dark. Nothing dramatic, no demons or ghosts. But I know what I felt, and I know what I saw, even if I can't explain it. I was assigned to a mid-sized job site on the edge of town, just a few miles from where the suburbs fade into desert. They were building a charter school, so there were half-finished hallways, exposed beams, pallets of drywall, and a lot of empty open space. The only real structure standing was the main building's shell, 3 floors tall, no windows installed yet. Rebarb sticking out in every direction. My shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6. I was supposed to walk the perimeter every few hours and log anything suspicious. That night it was unusually windy, constant low gusts that made the scaffolding groan, and the tarp flaps snap like whip cracks. The kind of wind that makes everything sound alive. Around 1:30 in the morning I was doing my second walkthrough. Most of the building was the same eerie half-finished mess it always was. But when I turned the corner near the southeast stairwell, something felt different. First thing I noticed was a bucket that had been moved. I'd passed it on my first check. It It was yellow, cracked, and full of water, and it had been sitting against a concrete pillar near the scaffolding. But now it was about 6 feet out, right in the middle of the walking path. Okay, not exactly a horror movie moment. Maybe the wind rolled it. Maybe one of the workers left it like that earlier. I nudged it with my boot, and it was still heavy. It didn't look like it had been dragged. I kept moving and rode it off. Then I heard footsteps, soft and deliberate, somewhere above me. I stood still and listened. 1, 2, 3, then nothing. You learn real quick when a site's echoing back your own footsteps versus someone else moving. These weren't mine. They were lighter and more measured. I called out, "Site's closed, you need to leave," half expecting some teenager trying to film a TikTok or whatever. No answer. I waited another few seconds, then made my way up the unfinished stairwell. I've done this enough to know how to keep calm, walk slow, stay in the open, flashlight beam steady. The second floor was quiet, just wind and steel and half-slung wires rattling in the breeze. I did a full loop, nothing, no prints and no sound. Then, as I passed one of the open window frames, I caught it. A reflection, just a flash. Someone in the first floor window looking up at me, right below where I was standing. I froze and pointed my light straight down, but it was gone. There was no cover there, just a dirt patch and a pile of stacked insulation. No way someone could have ducked out of sight that fast. But the reflection, it wasn't like I saw a face or features, just a shape, like a person-sized shadow standing completely still. I know how that sounds. I did another full sweep of the building, even checked the trailers where the tools were locked up. Nothing disturbed, no signs of forced entry. The gate was still locked. I filed a basic report with my supervisor before my shift ended, but I left out the reflection part. Just said I thought I heard movement and did a full sweep. The thing that stuck with me, though, isn't the bucket or the steps or the reflection. It's what I found on the 3rd floor. I wasn't even supposed to go up there. It hadn't been cleared yet, and the flooring was still rough. But I checked it anyway, just to be thorough after the weirdness. And in one of the corner rooms, drawn in the drywall dust on the floor, was a shape. A perfect circle, maybe 4 feet wide, with a smaller circle inside it. No footprints leading to or from it. Just that design, like it had been traced with a stick or a pipe. Smooth and deliberate. I didn't touch it, didn't even get close. I just stared at it for a few seconds and felt that pressure. That quiet internal nope your body tells you when something's wrong, and you can't explain why. I left the site 20 minutes early that morning, just clocked out and sat in my car until sunrise. Next night I came back. Everything was normal. No bucket in the path, no sound, no circle. The drywall dust had been disturbed by wind or boots, or both. Nothing there anymore. I've worked dozens of sites since. I've never seen anything like that again, and I still don't really believe in the supernatural. But I do believe people leave things behind, feelings or imprints. Places remember things like that. I think something happened there a long time ago, something that left a dent, and for whatever reason that one night, it echoed loud enough for me to hear it. I work private security in a wealthy gated community outside of Sacramento. It's a low-profile gig, just me in a booth with a few camera feeds, a logbook, a flashlight, and a space heater that only works half the time. It's the kind of job you take when you want to keep your head down. I usually work the overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I clock in, check the perimeter once or twice, then settle in and keep an eye on the monitors. Sometimes I read, sometimes I listen to podcasts. Mostly, I make sure no one's screwing around near these hedge-wrapped mansions. I've been here 8 months. Boring, yeah, but it's been quiet. Until last night. Just past 1 a.m., the camera feed for Pine Circle glitched. Just a flicker of static, maybe a second, tops. But it caught my eye. Those feeds rarely act up. The system's ancient, but surprisingly stable. I checked the monitor again, and the picture was back. A motion light had clicked on at the Hollander place. That's one of the bigger homes. Circular driveway. Koi pond the size of my living room. I zoomed the feed. At first glance, nothing was there. But then I saw the side gate. It was ajar, maybe a foot open. No wind that night, so definitely not normal. Protocol says I've got to check it out in person, so I grabbed my flashlight and radio, locked the booth, and headed that way. The streets here are dead silent at night. Landscape lights on timers cast soft glows across the pavement, and everything's too neat, too still. It feels more like a museum than a neighborhood. When I got to the Hollander property, the gate was wide open. Not blown in, just open. I scanned the yard and there was no movement, just meticulously trimmed hedges and some expensive topiary work. Then I saw footprints, a few in the gravel just inside the gate, fresh tread and work boots. Not from the usual landscapers and definitely not normal at this hour. I radioed in even though I was the only one on shift. Gate access on Pine Circle open, investigating possible trespass. No visual on subject. A few seconds later, my radio made a weird noise. Static. Not a voice, just a strange inhale and exhale. Like someone breathing close to the mic. Then it died. Total silence. Screen was dark. I tapped the unit a few times and nothing happened. Dead battery, maybe. Or interference. Either way, not good. Then I saw him. A man, black hoodie, crouched low behind a retaining wall near the patio. He hadn't seen me yet. He was facing away, tapping something on his phone. Then I saw him slip on gloves. That was it for me. Not a guest and not a contractor. This was a prowler. I raised my flashlight and stepped out. "Private security, stay where you are." He looked up, eyes wide, then bolted. I chased him down the side yard, and he was fast. Surprisingly fast. We hit the back fence and he vaulted it like it was nothing, disappearing into the greenbelt that runs behind the property line. I stopped short of the fence, trying to catch my breath. Scanned with my light and saw nothing, not even movement in the trees. That's when I noticed something odd. A faint noise coming from my radio. I pulled it out. It was still dark and still dead. But I could hear something faint. Static again. Maybe residual interference. Maybe the guy had a jammer. I don't know. I decided to play it safe and headed back to the booth. I locked the door and pulled up the camera feeds. My heart dropped. The feed facing the greenbelt was glitching. Not totally dead, just scrambled. Intermittent static and weird distortion. Maybe the guy messed with the camera somehow. Or maybe he had an accomplice. Either way, it was compromised. I tried to rewind the footage from a few minutes earlier. I caught him on screen. Black hoodie, pacing outside the Hollander property. But the playback was corrupted. He'd move a few feet between frames, then freeze. The motion was janky, almost like a laggy video stream. But everything else in the frame was normal. The lights, the trees, even the koi pond. Just him. He was glitchy as hell. Probably bad file corruption. Maybe the system struggling with low light. I'm not really sure. The last frame showed him disappearing out of view just as he jumped the fence. I couldn't tell if someone was behind him or not. Probably just shadows in the trees. I sat back and tried to think it through. I'd seen one intruder. He fled. No confirmation of anyone else. And that's when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow taps on the booth's window. I jumped, turned, flashlight up. Nothing. No one there. I stepped out, shined the light around the booth. There were no footprints, no noises, no signs of movement. But on the ground right below the glass, a pair of gloves, black leather. One had a smudge, grease or maybe oil, I'm not sure. But it smelled metallic. I bagged them in a plastic sack I had under the desk and logged the incident. After that, there were no more knocks and no more motion. I stayed inside the booth the rest of the shift, jumpy as hell. Didn't even finish my coffee. When I came back later to hand over the report, the gloves were gone. I'd left them in the evidence drawer we use for lost property, but my supervisor said they'd never been logged. The drawer was empty. He brushed the whole thing off, said the system had some minor issues overnight, power fluctuations or something like that. The camera had lost feed from about 1 to 2:30 in the morning. Gate logs hadn't been saved either, but here's what stuck with me. Later that day, someone was found in the drainage canal just outside the property line. No ID and unconscious. EMT said he was in shock, dehydrated, scratched up pretty bad from crawling through brush. No major injuries though. But he hadn't spoken a word since they picked him up. He was just muttering. They're still trying to ID him. I haven't seen a photo, but I'm almost certain it's him, the guy I chased. No clue what happened out there in that green belt. Maybe he got disorientated, fell, tried to make his way out. Maybe he was running from something else, or someone else. I just know that ever since that night, I check the cameras more often. I keep my flashlight within reach, and I don't go near the Hollander house alone. Whatever he was running from, real or imagined, I don't want it getting close to me next. I'm a school security officer in a city that doesn't get much good press. 2 campuses, overcrowded halls, and the kind of metal detectors that only sort of work. I've been at this job for 6 years. I know most of the kids by name, and they know me as Mr. Nate. Most days are noise and boredom, fights, vape pens, and truancy. Not ideal, but manageable. Yesterday wasn't like that. It was quiet in the wrong kind of way. The kind that makes your skin tighten before your brain catches up. Here's what happened. It started around 10:15 in the morning. I was near the back lot, posted by the cafeteria exit. A group of sophomores were trying to sneak off campus for snacks. Nothing new. I had just turned a group back inside when I spotted someone I didn't recognize walking along the edge of the lot. Male, probably 17 or 18, wearing a dark green hoodie with long sleeves, even though it was almost 80 out. His head was down and hands deep in his front pocket, walking fast but trying to look casual. What made me notice was the fact that he wasn't wearing an ID badge. School policy requires all students to wear one around their necks. I figured he was skipping class or didn't belong there at all. I called out to him, "Hey, where's your badge?" He didn't stop. He just cut around the side of the building near the gym entrance and slipped through the side door before I could get closer. I radioed in, unidentified male entering building by South Gym, dark hoodie, gray pants. I'm going in after him. The gym hallway was dead quiet. Usually there's a coach, maybe a class doing laps, but this time it was just fluorescent lights humming overhead and the squeak of my boots. I checked the locker room first. It was empty. Then I heard a faint metal clink. Not loud, just a soft, deliberate tap, like something being dragged gently across the floor. I followed it into the equipment room. It was barely lit, storage shelves on both sides, old wrestling mats leaning against the walls. And that's when I saw him. Same kid, kneeling near the bench in the back corner, rummaging through his backpack. I stepped forward and said, "You got a hall pass?" He froze. He didn't turn around. I repeated louder, "I need to see your ID now." He stood up slowly, one hand still inside his hoodie pocket. Something in me pulled tight, a kind of crawling sensation up the back of my arms. It was instinct more than logic. His other hand came up holding a length of heavy steel chain, about 3 feet of it, coiled in his fist like a whip. One end had a padlock hooked to it. Not a weapon you'd notice at first glance, but in the right hands it could do a lot of damage. We stared at each other. He didn't say anything, just blinked slowly like he was waiting to see what I'd do. I kept my tone calm. "You don't want to do this, all right? Let's take a walk to the office." He stepped forward 1 pace, and I swear to God, I saw this flicker of something in his face. Not anger, not fear, just emptiness. like he was moving through this moment without really being in it. I took a slow step back and reached for my radio. Security to office. I need assistance in gym storage. Possible intruder, no ID. Bring admin. The kid flinched like the sound snapped him out of something. Then he dropped the chain. Just let it hit the floor with a dull thunk. He backed up, grabbed his bag, and bolted out the rear exit that leads to the bus lane. That door was supposed to be locked from the inside, but someone had jammed it with a folded bit of cardboard wedged between the latch and the frame. He was gone before backup arrived. PD showed up about 10 minutes later. We ran the cameras, got some grainy footage of him leaving campus through a side street. And here's what we learned later. The kid had been a student, transferred out last semester. Spotty attendance, quiet, no major behavior issues. He just disappeared after December. He wasn't carrying anything else in the bag, just a few notebooks and an energy drink. But the chain and padlock combo? That was intentional. Not something you happen to carry around in your hoodie pocket. We don't know what he planned. Maybe he was going to hit someone. Maybe he just wanted to scare people. Maybe he didn't even know himself. But I keep thinking, what if I hadn't seen him? What if he'd made it to the cafeteria? What if he waited for the end of the day when the halls were full? The worst part is the silence. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten me. He just stood there like the whole thing was happening to someone else. That kind of quiet sticks with you more than shouting. I've had rough days at this job. Fights, knives, threats. But this one shook me in a different way. Because it reminded me that the real danger isn't always loud. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it walks in through a cracked door and hides in plain sight with its head down and its hands in its pockets. If you work in a school, double check the exits. If you've got a kid, check their bag every now and then. And if someone's walking like they don't want to be seen, notice them. It might be nothing, but yesterday it wasn't. This happened in 1987 at a mall in Southern California. Back then I was 23. I had just left a short and underwhelming stint in the Army, and I was back living with my parents. My uncle helped me get a job as an overnight security guard at a new indoor shopping mall that had opened the year before. It was your typical mid-sized mall. 2 big anchors, JCPenney's and Sears, an arcade, a movie theater, and about 70 stores between them. I worked graveyard shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., Sunday through Thursday. My job was to walk the interior loops, check that gates and doors were locked, and keep an eye out for drunks or teens trying to sneak in after hours. There were 2 of us at night, me and Rick, the other guy on rotation. He usually handled the loading docks and back corridors. I stayed inside, mostly walking loops or sitting in the security office watching monitors. It was quiet work and I liked it that way. Until that week. Everything started on a Monday night. What happened lasted only about 3 nights, but I still think about it more than 35 years later. It started on Monday night with the plants. There were planters scattered throughout the mall, those big raised concrete ones with fake ficus trees and ferns. There were 6 total. I'd memorized their placement. But that Monday night, on my second loop through the North Corridor, one of the planters had been moved. Not far, just rotated, like someone had pivoted it slightly, so the trees inside were no longer centered under the skylight. At first, I thought maybe maintenance had done it during the day, but when I asked Rick over the radio, he just said, "Don't those things weigh like 300 pounds?" He was right. You'd need at least 2 guys to move one without a dolly. I shrugged it off until the next pass. Now, a different planter near the old Sharper Image store was moved. Only this time it was shifted sideways, several inches out of its recessed platform. The moment I saw it, I got full-body goosebumps. Not from fear, exactly, but from the sudden realization that something wasn't right. Like my body knew before my brain did. We checked the entrance logs and cameras. No signs of anyone else inside. No alarms tripped. We chalked it up to maybe someone messing around during the day and maintenance forgetting to log it. But the goosebumps stuck with me for the rest of the night. I was already a little jumpy going into the second night, so when the mall's music system started cutting in and out, I noticed right away. You know the soft instrumental pop they played back then? Muzak versions of Madonna, Phil Collins, and stuff like that? It's always background noise until it starts slowing down. Not just quiet, but literally dragging like the tape was warping. That night it was time after time. At least, I think it was. The notes were stretched out, and every now and then there'd be a sharp clicking sound, like the speaker wiring was exposed. Then it stopped entirely. Dead silence. And a few seconds later, I heard something else. A soft shuffling sound. I was standing near the food court at the time, and I swear it was coming from inside one of the restaurants. It was a Sparrow, gated shut, dark inside. But behind the counter, I heard the sound of movement, like feet dragging slow and deliberately. I raised my flashlight and waited. The movement stopped. I banged on the metal gate. "Security," I called out. "You're not supposed to be in there." Nothing. I circled around and checked the employee entrance. It was locked and sealed. I couldn't find any sign that someone had been inside, but I know what I heard. Rick came around a few minutes later. I told him what happened. He didn't laugh it off this time. Instead, he said, "We've got motion in the arcade too. Caught it on the cams just now." We both headed there. Lights were off, machines powered down. But one of the cabinets, Sinistar, I remember clearly, was lit up. Full screen glow. The game hadn't worked for weeks. As we got closer, the screen glitched, then cut out again. I reached behind the cabinet to check the power cord. It was unplugged, no joke. It wasn't even connected to an outlet. That gave me goosebumps again, and not just my arms, but my scalp tingled too. Like whatever was happening was brushing up against something I couldn't see. Rick and I didn't say much after that. We just did one more sweep and stuck close to the security office the rest of the shift. Wednesday night was different from the start. The air, for one, felt weird. Almost cold, but not temperature cold. It was more like standing near something magnetic, if that makes sense. About halfway through my first loop, I got those goosebumps again, sharp this time, crawling up my arms and neck like something was watching me from behind. I passed one of the toy stores and saw something that made me stop. All the display dolls, dozens of them in the front window, were turned in the wrong direction. They were facing inward toward the store. They'd always been posed outward, smiling and cheerful, hands up in a welcoming gesture. Now they all stood turned away, backs to the glass. I got that deep crawling kind of goosebumps again, worse than before. Then I saw it. Just for a second, my reflection in the store window. But it didn't move like me. It lagged like a video buffer. It was maybe half a second behind. When I turned away, I could still see it facing forward, not turning, not mimicking me like it should. I backed away, trying not to blink. I headed for the security office and found Rick already inside, watching the monitors. He looked pale. "Something's off with the escalators," he said. "Watch this." He rewound footage from 10 minutes earlier. Camera 4, pointed at the main escalator near JCPenney's. A shadow moved up the down escalator, but it wasn't walking. It wasn't gliding either. It just advanced. Dark, upright, and vaguely human-shaped. No face, no edges. It looked more like a smear on the film. The escalator wasn't moving, but this thing moved smoothly, rhythmically, and then it was gone. We looked at each other and didn't speak. Just sat there until dawn, both of us wrapped in a silence that made the skin on my arms crawl. Thursday and Friday night, nothing happened. Everything stopped. No more odd music, no planters out of place. Dolls were turned back around the right way, and no weird figures on tape. Rick and I checked the whole mall top to bottom. Nothing. He quit the next week. Said he got a job at a warehouse across town, and he never returned my calls after that. I stuck around a few more months before I took a job hauling freight. I never figured out what happened during those 3 nights, and I didn't talk about it for years. But every once in a while, when I'm walking past a closed store or hear a warped version of an old song in an elevator, I feel that same chill crawl up my arms again. That same unshakable sense that something is just out of sight. I've worked private security for 14 years, mostly night shifts, warehouses, parking structures, even a power station once. My current post is an old industrial plant just outside of St. Louis that shut down in the late 90s. I won't name the company, but let's just say they made things that needed to be stored in barrels. Rusty, heavy-duty, military-adjacent kind of stuff. The plant is about 6 square blocks of fenced-off buildings, silos, underground storage, and a lot of darkness. There's been talk of converting it into an industrial arts district, but nothing's happened yet. In the meantime, my job is simple. Stay on site overnight, log hourly patrols, keep squatters and copper thieves out, and file a report before I leave at 6 a.m. It's boring, usually, but over the last 2 weeks, things have gotten strange. I'll try to lay it out clearly. I'm not saying anything supernatural is happening. I'm not that kind of guy, but I've worked enough nights to know what normal feels like, and this isn't it. My second night on the job, I was walking my 1 a.m. round. The air was heavy, like a storm was trying to form but couldn't commit. The path between Silo 3 and the old fabrication building is a 200-foot corridor of chain link and crumbling concrete. As I passed it, I heard this high, mechanical screech echo from inside the fab building. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't wind. It was sharp and short, like a piece of metal being dragged across a tile floor. I froze, and then it stopped. The building has been sealed for years. The only access is through a welded steel door. I checked it, and it was still locked, same rusted padlock intact. I wrote it off as a thermal expansion or maybe a raccoon climbing on junk. But that sound, it had intention behind it. You can feel that sort of thing. 5 nights in, I noticed the light flickering from the admin wing. It's a narrow hallway of offices, all with busted out glass and overturned chairs. At the end is the old locker room, which still smells like mildew and old soap. The weird part? There's no power in that building. We use portable floodlights outside when needed, but nothing inside has been functioning for decades. But sure enough, as I came around the corner, there was a pulsing light coming from under the locker room door, like a fluorescent overhead trying to fire up, buzzing and clicking. I pushed the door open and there was nothing. It was totally dark. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, goosebumps on my arm, neck skin crawling. It was like something had just stopped when I entered. I didn't tell my supervisor. What was I supposed to say? Hey, the ghost locker turned itself on? The third incident was worse, and that was last Friday night, around 3:40 in the morning. I was in the security shack filling out paperwork. The shack faces the south fence where the rail line used to run. It's got a big window, and beyond that is a row of maintenance garages. I looked up from my clipboard and saw movement. A figure, tall with broad shoulders, standing behind the broken window of Garage 4. No flashlight, no reflective gear. It was just standing there. I grabbed my mag light and stepped outside. The wind had picked up, and something in my gut screamed not to walk toward it. But I did anyways, ever so slowly. By the time I got to the garage, the figure was gone. There were no footprints in the dirt, just an open fuse box hanging off the wall, swinging gently like it had just been touched. I locked that building up myself 2 hours before. I know I did. I should have quit after that night. I've worked less creepy gigs for better pay. But here's the truth. I need the overtime. My wife's been out of work for a few months now. She had surgery back in January. And the bills are piling up. Our daughter's starting community college this fall, and I want her to have a chance. So yeah, I keep showing up. I tell myself it's just an old building full of weird acoustics and bad memories. I've seen worse, probably. And now the event that really cracked me. This is why I'm posting. Last night, around 2:15, I took my break in the break room trailer. It's one of those prefab units with a microwave, a dead coffee pot, and a couch that smells like moldy carpet. I must have dozed off for 10 minutes. When I woke up, my radio was buzzing faintly. Just static. It's a company channel, closed frequency, usually dead silent. That's when I heard it. A voice, not clear, not a full sentence, just a garbled low whisper. Something like, "under it." That was it. I sat up fast and checked the feed. The security cameras are mostly junk, but one angle still works. The north yard between the cooling tower and the old loading dock. Someone was walking across the gravel, slowly and limping a little. Shoulders hunched like they were carrying something, but there was no one scheduled on site except me. I ran out to check, and there was no one there. Nothing. Not even a footprint, and the gravel wasn't disturbed at all. I checked the timestamp. The figure had been walking behind the camera's range, but the camera glitched for about 5 seconds, and when the feed came back, the figure was gone. No exit path, just vanished into dead concrete. I came in this evening and found the admin door cracked open. The padlock is gone, just cleanly removed. No brake marks, no signs of force. Inside, the air is cold. Not just cool, but cold, like a meat locker. No breeze outside, no temperature drop, just cold inside that one wing. And on the wall in the locker room, someone scraped a shape into the mildew. It's not a word, and not a symbol I recognize. Just a circle with 2 horizontal lines through it, like an old resistor diagram or an eclipse. I haven't reported it yet. I told the site manager that the wind probably shook the old door loose. I think he knows I'm lying, but he didn't press me any further. I've been on hundreds of job sites, some weird, some dangerous, but this one is quietly wrong. Like something under the surface is watching, waiting. And it's not ghosts, I don't believe in that. But I've been wondering if this place was ever fully cleaned out. If maybe some old workers stayed behind. Or if something is living in the miles of tunnels below the plant. Something that knows the cameras, knows the routines. Something human, or close enough. I've got 3 more weeks on this contract, and then I'm gone. But I've started keeping my phone recording in my pocket, just in case something happens. Just in case I don't make it out one night. I'll post an update if anything else happens. If you work nights, trust your gut. And never, ever fall asleep on patrol.